Welcome everyone. It's good to see you today. We are currently discussing the practice stage by stage. We're going through all the various levels of the practice, and we've been covering them since episode 200 now. Going through the first 4 basic stages, which are, as you can say, kind of 2 inches wide and a mile deep. So I see meditation a bit like that. It's not really about accumulating vast amount of techniques or having a lot of teachers or visiting many different types of retreats or meditating with a lot of apps. It's much more about really devoting yourself to one practice, one particular facet in that practice with consistency and passion for it, and then it takes you deeper. So we've been covering those first 4 stages. That should keep you busy for a long time. And then we've been discussing a few of the tools, the inner toolbox, such as kindness, compassion, building conscientiousness, honesty in the practice, and all these kind of things, and how they support the practice as you go along. And currently we're discussing the hindrances that might arise during meditation practice. So last session, which was on Tuesday, we covered the first one of the classic 5 hindrances, which is sensuality or sense desire, kamachanda. And today we're going to have a look at the second one, which is called ill will or aversion. And aversion it's very common actually. A lot of us experience this throughout the meditation practice. It often starts with the discomforts in the body that you experience as you just set out and begin your practice. The body is usually very, very uncomfortable and restless, and we have a hard time to actually calm down in the body and sit either cross-legged or on a chair. There's a whole lot of nervous energy going on in the body. And so it takes a while for that to settle down. And it takes a lot of patience, actually, to learn to deal with the body and to receive it with kindness and with understanding, with compassion, and to treat it with respect. A normal relationship to pain and discomfort is one of trying to get rid of that. So if there's an experience that you dislike, that you don't like, anything like somebody criticizing you, or you're experiencing headaches or something like that, you can't do the things that you would like to do, then usually we respond with anger. So the energy of anger is just a strong dislike. It is disliking something. So at its core, the core of anger is, the emotion of anger builds around this core of dislike or aversion. And aversion muddies the waters. So if you have this proverbial glass of water and the dust has settled in it, anger is what steers it up again. Anger is in its nature a very hot kind of energy. It's burning in nature. It's very often also compared to a fire which consumes anything it gets in touch with. And you want to deal with it as fast as possible. The energy of aversion greatly disturbs the practice, and it keeps you from being at ease and peaceful and going deeper into the meditation practice. So what do you do when pain arises in the body? Well, first of all, instead of trying to get rid of it, see if you can understand it. The whole topic of meditation is about understanding rather than just simply judging and getting rid of or accumulating things. It's much more about understanding what's going on. So you might have some pain in your knees. Send your awareness there and have a look from the inside. What's that pain made of? How does it move? Is it sharp? Is it dull? Is it coarse? Is it smooth? Is it expanding or is it contracting in nature? How does it respond to your breath? Now you can experiment with it a little bit. How does it respond to your breath? How does it respond to a few kind words? How does it respond to encouragement? How does it respond to aggression? How does it respond to dislike? But this is all for you there now to test, to put to the test. So that's why one of the first things that we really practice is to sit still in the posture for quite a while. So you want to be able to actually develop a posture in which you can sit for an hour completely still. That's the very first task. Probably before that even, to get your life in order. This is even more important than trying to put meditation into a messy life and hoping that meditation will somehow take care of things. It won't. Many people try though, and then they're wondering, why doesn't it work? Like, why can't I regularly meditate, for example? I've been trying to do regular meditation for, 1 year, 2 years, and it kind of doesn't work. It's on and off, and I'm always so angry, I can't properly settle the mind, and I'm so busy, there's so much work going on, it's so hard to find the time to meditate. So life needs care, first of all. That's the most basic level of practice, is really getting our life in order. Putting mindfulness into small little things. The way you put your shoes when you take them off. You see, meditation practice starts with these little things, tiny little things. The way you talk to someone when you talk with them. The way you listen to them. It starts right there. The way you structure your day. How you get up in the morning all the way until you go to sleep. Do you go to sleep regularly? Do you wake up regularly? Do you entertain yourself a lot? Is that necessary? Because many people say, I don't have so much time. Well, what if you took out the element of entertainment, just as a thought experiment? Just remove all forms of entertainment for a week in that thought experiment. I'm not encouraging you to do that, not at all actually. Just to give you an idea of how much time would that free up. No YouTube, no Instagram, no Facebook, no social media, no checking your phone all the time for whatever reason. But only the things that you really have to do that make you money. In other words, proper work. So you use your phone actually for work. And so it then makes you money in that moment. You're not just kind of dangling around through the apps and doing this and that and kind of killing time. If you stop doing that, you will be surprised how much time you all of a sudden have. And then the first thing that comes up will probably be boredom. And then what's underneath that boredom? Probably frustration with the way you've spent your time so far. A great deal of resentment towards yourself, a lack of self-esteem and self-respect. And all these feelings are there. And all the distraction have kept them at bay. But now you're not distracting, so what will happen right now is all these feelings will be in your face. And they will show you, here's why you've been looking into your phone. Here's why you've been running around talking to this person, then to that person, then this. Here's why you avoid desperately spending even just 1 minute alone by yourself without doing anything. Just looking at yourself quietly. That's important to see, of course. But leave aside that thought experiment. I absolutely do not recommend you to cut down all entertainment at all, but maybe a bit. So you have some room for training your mind. Why do you think would that be important, training your mind? Because it's your mind that runs the show. It's your mind that makes your body move. It's your mind that opens your mouth and says things through the mouth. And it is the mind that receives the results of your actions also. And it is the mind that either suffers the results of your actions or that enjoys them. So the mind is the principle. It's the most important point in life. It's the driver of your car. Without a driver, a car is just a car. But the driver, and particularly a driver that is goal-oriented, that knows what he or she wants, that makes the whole journey meaningful and empowering and inspiring for other people who watch your drive. Right? So that's getting carried away a little bit. This is the most basic training. If you get that straight and if you get that in order, meditation has a serious chance. If you treat people well, and people treat you well, you don't have to sit down on your cushion and worry about what you just said, and think about what will this person do tomorrow when they meet you again, and all these stories that go on in our heads that don't let us actually free, so we can't focus while we're sitting on the cushion. Or all the things that you did in work and they keep you worrying even on the meditation cushion and so forth. The future, the past, this and that. It is a life that is where we are just kind of following our impulses that creates an impulsive thought or mindset that will then disturb us when we sit on the cushion. And then, now when we come to the actual practice of meditation, the second hindrance, ill will here, or aversion, means that you react to the build-up of nervous energy and problematic lifestyles, etc., which we all have. We react to that, on top of that, with anger. We don't like what's going on. I can't concentrate on the breath. I can't seem to focus. Yesterday I felt really nice in my meditation, but not today. Why not? The neighbors are noisy. I have too many thoughts. It's hot. Oh, and my knee hurts on top of that. And then we become really pushy and we push ourselves onto the breath. We try to dominate ourselves in some way very often. That's an expression of ill will. Somehow I experience myself as being a broken entity, and I feel that this broken entity must be fixed. And based on the premise that I am a broken entity and I must fix myself, I then approach myself with one tool, a sledgehammer, and that's it. Can I just try to get sorted all of it with the sledgehammer? Okay, there might be a nice screw and you need a screwdriver to put it into the wall, but yeah, no, I have a sledgehammer and you just hammer it into the wall. You break everything with it. That's what ill will does. It's kind of like a sledgehammer. You're treating yourself with a sledgehammer, trying to focus on the breath, trying not to think. That's like sledgehammer approach. So we need to learn to refine the way we approach ourselves. And I think this refinement happens when you contemplate yourself as a being that suffers. If you have the eyes to see that. Most people think they don't suffer. They think they're doing just fine. If you believe that, then contemplate yourself as a potential. You're not only just accumulation of elements and actions, but you're also potential. And there is a potential for great evil, and there is a potential for great good. Both reside within you. You carry both infinite darkness and infinite light. Of course, it's easier to admit to ourselves that I carry infinite light. We like that. It's easy to say these things and it's easy to believe in them. But when it comes to infinite darkness, no, my darkness is kind of finite, I feel. It doesn't go into infinite depth, but it does. It takes little to pull the rug underneath your feet, and you're as helpless as a little baby. If your structures, for example, break apart, and you lose your job, or let's say the revenue department pays a visit, or your relationship of 20 years, your marriage breaks apart, and everything you knew and relied on, and everything that gave you some structure and sense of stability in life suddenly breaks apart, which does happen to all of us at some point in life. Might be a diagnosis of cancer or something like this. And everything you believed supports you suddenly doesn't. And there you are, like dangling in open space, not knowing what to do. And that's when this potential darkness becomes very strong. And in times of need and necessity, we might be doing things that we would have never imagined we could be doing. An example that I could be giving is, just imagine another thought experiment. Imagine 1 week on this world where all electricity suddenly breaks down. There's no more electricity. It's 1 week of it. What would happen? All hell would break loose. Imagine police wouldn't be able to do their work anymore. Governments couldn't run properly. Shop owners couldn't keep themselves safe. They couldn't call anyone for help. You couldn't call anyone for help. In what situation would we immediately be put? It's a situation of alert. It's very dangerous. Why? Well, because it reveals something inside of us as human beings, and it doesn't include us here, sitting in that room where we meditate peacefully together, because our structures allow us to. But what if those structures would break? Who would we be then? We couldn't fall back onto those structures or those protective mechanisms. Yes, then this energy comes up. So see yourself as a being which has not only the potential to suffer, but which suffers almost continuously. Another surprise maybe that I say that. How can I say that you're suffering continuously? Are you suffering right now? Maybe you say, no. Right now, no, I'm not suffering. All right. Look at your body then. Just the body, not the mind even. And as you look at your body, don't you constantly micro-adjust your body in some way? Like tiny adjustments on the inside. You might sit there quite still on the outside, but on the inside, there's constantly something going on. Why? Is it because the body is infinitely pleasant? No, it's because the body is constantly challenging us. The pleasure that the body gives is constantly changing, so we have to adapt all the time to keep the body kind of stable so we're not experiencing the pain in it. The same is true for the mind. Now, if you do not believe me, just spend some time with your mind. Have a look at it. This is not a belief system. I'm not telling you must believe that you suffer. Say this is something that you naturally discover when you're looking at the mind, and how restless it is, and how it's constantly in a mode of searching for something. If it would not suffer, it wouldn't have to search for something. But the mind is in that state of anxiety and restlessness precisely because it is not fulfilled, and it seeks happiness. It's scanning for it everywhere. It thinks about things it could do. It thinks about things that it could avoid, and how it could build the future, and it's constantly doing that. Why? Not because we're at ease, but precisely we're not at ease. I've told you about the experiment, I think, before, that they did where they sent people into a room for 15 minutes. Google it up. It's a very, very interesting experiment that they did just recently. Just quickly getting over it. They've sent people into a room, a whole lot of people sending into a room, and the task was get into the room and think. Seemingly simple task, right? So you have 15 minutes in that room. 15. It's not very much. In the room, just be there and be with your thoughts. And almost everybody who went into that room reported that it was unbearable, sitting in that room and being alone with my thoughts. Because most people, that might be different for us because we already know what meditation is and we know what to do with the mind. So we might sit there 15 minutes looking at the breath, feeling quite okay. But these were people who had no idea what to do with their minds or their thoughts or anything. So they were just sitting there and seeing what? Complete chaos. There you have an adult who should be actually in control of what's going on right there within, but not at all. So the thoughts would just run all over the place. And so people reported being totally unpleasant experience, those 15 minutes. Then they led them to another room where they introduced them to a device that gave electric shocks. So you push a button and that device shocks you. And that was super unpleasant. So they asked those people, would you pay a lot of money for us to stop pushing the button and torturing you with this electric shocks? And so people all said, yes, obviously we would pay a lot of money for you to stop that because it's super painful. Third phase of the experiment, back into the room where they were first. The task is, you can choose now. You can spend 15 minutes being with your thoughts, but here's also the electric device. So now it's up to you how you spend that time. What do you think people did? What did the vast majority do in those the second 15 minutes? They gave themselves shocks. So it appears very much that we prefer inducing pain onto ourselves rather than being alone with ourselves. We're so scared of the potential mind and the inability to deal with it and direct it in any wholesome way, that the only alternative to distract ourselves from is obvious. It's just giving ourselves electroshocks. Very interesting experiment. Read it up. It makes a good point in that direction, I think. Seeing ourselves as a being that suffers. Now, what does that do to you? If you see someone that suffers, what does that do to you? What does it trigger? What kind of emotion does that trigger? Compassion, yeah. You don't want people to suffer, right? So how about yourself? How do you approach yourself when you suffer? Very often not at all with compassion, but with criticism. And anger on top. I shouldn't be suffering. I should be perfect. I should be happy all the time. And no wonder we say that. Look at the way the advertising is training our mind to think of the world in black and white. And if you have that product, you'll be always happy and everything will be always great. And that's the way you should be. You should always have an A in school. You should always perform best. You should be top of the class, the best in your job. You should work yourself up. You shouldn't fail. You shouldn't say the wrong thing. Definitely, you should always look good. And so people start putting on roles of which they believe that it makes them look the way they feel they need to look. When I was young, 16, 17, I was very much into hip-hop. I listened to a lot of hip-hop music. And so with listening to hip-hop music came this kind of taking on this character, and I wore baggy pants and I walked this kind of cool walk, and I talked in cool ways and all that. It took on this persona. And we do that because we think then people who see us, they see us the way we should be. That's the way I should be. If I'm cool and I'm tough and everything, then then people like me, who I am. Then I'm a member of the group. I'm not expelled from the group, which is a serious thing. We are group animals. If you're out of the group, it's death. It means to our biological system, it means death. No more protection, you're alone. It's the worst thing that can happen, being expelled from a group. So we quickly seek the next group. Belonging means a lot. So when you suffer like that, can you receive yourself with compassion? Can you see the various roles that you play in your meditation practice? Can you see that you try to be super spiritual, and you try to be very concentrated, and you try to be perfect, and you try anything, just so that you then maybe can give yourself the permission, now you can love yourself, because now you're perfect enough. But the problem is, it's never going to be enough. And of course we're angry at that. This underlying never enough. And there's something inside of us that often rebels against that. And it resists pain and problems because you shouldn't have it. And a wonderful insight will be in your practice that pain is normal. And it's totally fine. It's okay. It's okay to have pain. And you can relax around it. And you can soften your attitude around it. And you can receive it and accept it. And then very often miracles happen. The pain dissolves. It goes away. And you learn that the pain that you felt in your knee or in your hips or in your lower back was the mind. It was resistance in the mind. It wasn't actually anything wrong with the body. And that's a big, big insight. I don't know just how much of the pain that we feel in the body is actually the mind being tense and angry and aggressive and like a holding sort of mind, tight. And when you release that and you start giving space to something that's there, giving space to your pain, giving space to difficult, complicated, confusing experiences, then they can solve themselves. So all it takes is to take out your element of tension, your element of trying to, and you give a bit space. And you understand, yeah, it's perfectly normal for me to be scared or angry. You might not believe this, but this is a very recent discovery of myself. As I always mention, we have these neighbors which are very noisy over there. And it gives me a great difficulty to deal with this. It makes me angry when people are inconsiderate and noisy. So I've tried, probably years, to not feel irritated by it. I tried to feel peaceful about it. And I tried all the tricks I knew, everything that's in the book. I've tried to smile at it, I've tried to forgive them, I've tried to understand them, it's their work, it's what they do, it's all this kind of stuff. I tried everything, and nothing works. Why? Because I was denying myself the right to be angry. And that is the problem of the whole thing. So I then started to recognize, oh my goodness, I'm aggressively against my anger. And my anger is obviously there. It's coming up every single time when they make noise and being inconsiderate. Then the anger comes up there. It's right there. It's undeniable. And it had to come up probably thousands, tens of thousands of times until I recognized that it's there. And that it's understandable to have it. And for me, that was the realization. That it's like, yeah, of course I'm angry. Of course I'm angry. That's the big insight. Then as soon as I saw that, the anger went right away. It just went away. And I felt blissful, felt really, really good all of a sudden. It felt super nice. Even with all the noise around, I just felt extremely happy all of a sudden. Why? Because the element of restricting myself wasn't there anymore. So I could free the mind. I could free the anger. And before I had the impression that I must free myself from the anger. No, I had to free the anger. Because I kept the anger prisoner. I kept it in a little box in my heart and I didn't let it go. And at the same time I was complaining about it, of course. When all I had to do is just open the door and poof, it could go out. And opening the door, the key to opening the door of your heart, to cite a little bit of a cliche kind of saying, the key to opening the door of your heart is in acceptance, in kindness. And that is precisely the antidote to this second hindrance, ill will and aversion against it, being against something. So first, see yourself as a being that suffers, particularly when you suffer obviously. So your knee hurts, or your lower back hurts, or you have a whole lot of thoughts, or you feel confused and bored and whatnot. Then you're suffering and it's obvious. First, state that in your mind. Say, right now I'm suffering. And take that seriously, please. Right now I am suffering. And what's that thing with suffering? It is something you do, not something that happens to you. So it invites introspection. It invites you to ask questions. How am I doing that suffering right now? What is it that I'm doing that I'm unaware of that produces this suffering? And then you approach it, that pain, with understanding. It's normal to feel pain. Of course you feel it. Of course you're angry. Of course you're annoyed with yourself. How could you be any different having all the past that you've had that has shaped you into who you are right now? How could you be any different? How could you be not yourself? That's probably at the root of the problem. We want to be someone else, someone perfect, and we're not. We're constantly confronted with our flawed nature, with the fact that we make mistakes and we mess up and things do not go the way we want them to go and people don't say the things they should say, and we're constantly confronted with the imperfection of our existence. And so some people react to that by just simply denying it straight. They say, no, everything is perfect just the way it is. That's okay if that is your true insight. If it's just a platitude, all right, then it's just a platitude. But if it is a true insight, if you truly agree that everything is perfect the way it is, you should be beyond suffering. Because that implies that all the conflict with truth is gone. It's a very big statement to make. Everything is perfect the way it is. Well, prove it. Let me live by your side and see if you keep the integrity of saying the one thing and actually following through in your character, in your doings and so forth, so that it matches up. That's another story, isn't it? So if you still suffer, be honest about it. There it is. I suffer right now. It's probably the most important insight. There is work to be done. I notice there is something that I must learn to let go. Otherwise I'm bothering myself. And by that I also bother those around me. This is not just you carrying your suffering. It is your suffering being expressed, bothering other people also. It's kind of a responsibility to yourself and to society to let that go. The question is how? And now we start with meditation. How could I let that go? Now you're curious, at least. You're not just doing a technique. You actually have a question. Like Einstein when he asked the question, what is light? It didn't let him rest, this question. Now look where it took him. It's pretty amazing. So where could that question, why do I suffer? And how could I stop? Where could that question take you? How deep could it take you? What kind of potentials in you could that reveal? And how useful could that be for others who are in contact with you? All these are, in my opinion, very good questions to ask. So the second hindrance is ill will, aversion. The antidote is kindness. Kindness based on acceptance and understanding. Doesn't mean you have fluffy feelings for things. Kindness doesn't mean having fluffy feelings. Kindness means you're able to accept what is, just as it is. And then act, of course, appropriately, in a good way, to make the situation better for yourself and others. So that's all that comes to mind for tonight. Are there any questions?